Paula, a very good evening to you, and thanks for your time this evening. So where are we in the process of this election now?
Well, so far more than 90% of votes have been counted. The final tally will be reached sometime tomorrow. And then next week, Wednesday, we'll have a final statement from the Central Election Commission. At this stage, the country's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is in second position, just one Knesset, one parliamentary seat behind a former IDF chief and the leader of a centre-left party, Benny Gantz. Now, that's a very, very close margin. We're talking of only around 160,000 votes. That separates the two leaders. So be that as it may, neither Netanyahu nor Gantz, who, as I mentioned, is currently in first position, is able to form a majority government. And that's the way Israeli politics works. The next government will be formed by that party, most likely to put together 61 out of 120 Knesset seats. And at this stage, it seems very unlikely that either leader is able to do that, raising the question that maybe there will need to be a third round of election. The last elections was just 6 months ago. So you can imagine that Israelis are getting increasingly frustrated at having elections every half a year.
So, Paula, I mean, just everything I'm reading and hearing about this, it does seem like it's the beginning of the end for Netanyahu.
It certainly does, and certainly that's most of the newspaper and the media headlines and the discussion here in Israel is, firstly, how he's going to fight back. There is no indication from Netanyahu himself that he plans to step down. And secondly, what kind of legacy this means he will leave if indeed he does not win another round as the country's prime minister. It has serious implications for three important corruption charges that are being leveled against him. Netanyahu is due to appear in a hearing in 2 weeks' time, and he needs to convince the courts not to indict him. The Attorney General has already said he's keen on an indictment. So without the promise of being able to be the country's prime minister and potentially introduce a law that would prevent him from being prosecuted, he is going to be prosecuted. And that has serious implications for Netanyahu. So he's fighting not only his political future and for his political survival, but he's also fighting in terms of criminal charges and the legacy that that might mean he leaves behind.
So what are the major issues here, Paula, that have swayed voters one way or the other, or left Netanyahu weakened in this election as well?
Well, the number one issue always for Israeli voters is the issue of security. But here you have Netanyahu, who most Israelis regard as strong in security, facing a former army chief, and that's the leader Benny Gantz that is currently in first position. So Netanyahu wasn't really able to present himself as that much stronger than his main contender. You also notice the party of Avigdor Lieberman. Now, this is a right-wing party. The leader, Avigdor Lieberman, is a former Defense Force minister, and he has doubled his support this time around, making him a key player in terms of forming this coalition government. He comes in with 10 parliamentary seats. Now, he's campaigning very much on the orthodox parties not having so much sway here in Israeli politics. And this suggests the fact that he doubled his support, that for many Israelis, they are encouraged to separate religion and state. So we've certainly seen a strong showing in terms of Israelis voting in favor of that. And then there are other issues, for example, the economic issues, social issues. But again, I would say the overriding factors are the issues of security and the issues of religion and state.
Okay, so you say counting should be done, and we should know by when what the fate of Netanyahu is. I suppose it is determining his fate, and Israel.
Well, the final tally will be in tomorrow. It will be confirmed next week, Wednesday, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Netanyahu is in or out. As I mentioned, you need to have the leader with 61 parliamentary seats. The way it works in Israel is that the country's president, Rivlin, will approach that leader with the most number of votes, so at this stage it's not Netanyahu, and see if he can form a majority coalition of 61 seats. He has several weeks in which to do this. If he can't, then the president will approach the second leader with the most number of votes, who might be Netanyahu, and see whether or not Netanyahu can form a coalition. The problem is that neither leader can form this majority. So Netanyahu is fighting for his political survival, but it's not yet clear that he's out. Having said that, it's not clear who's in. So another scenario, and one that's increasingly appearing more likely, is that we might have elections again 6 months from now.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Paula Sleer there. She's in Tel Aviv, and that's Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz heading there, as we say, for a deadlock, or will it be coalition talks there? We'll see what happens.